Good morning. It's 11 a.m. and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Climate Action Committee. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And first of all, I'm going to go through some introductions here and then we'll get to the identification of everyone. West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of the Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Council and I, as chair, are committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner, as outlined in the municipality's municipal code of conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to always conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner while the meeting is being conducted. I thank you all in advance for your commitment to these important meeting principles. And just members, remember to use the microphones when you wish to speak. I will get to you. I usually keep notes as people put their lights on. We are live on YouTube and the meeting is being recorded. Audience members are not permitted to record the meeting on their personal devices. And if we need to leave the building due to a fire or other emergency, exits are found to the left and the right towards the back of the room. The muster location is in the parking lot, the staff parking lot. And would John please be the last person out and check the washrooms and make sure they're empty? So that's all of my announcements. So we'll go around the table. I'll start with John and you guys can introduce yourself.
I'm John Ogilvie. I'm the Climate Action Coordinator for the municipality.
Jim Ivey, counselor for one of two counselors, I guess, for the town of Windsor.
Jamie Judo, citizen member.
Bonnie Smith, counselor for the other half of Windsor.
Deanna Snare, municipal clerk out of the CAO's office.
Todd Richard, Director of Public Works.
Carrie Fougier, Acting Director of Planning and Development.
Carmen Dewar-Miller, representing Financial Services.
Kathy Keogh, Director of Community Development.
And so also our CAO designate for this meeting as well. Just letting you know. So we'll move right along to approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve. Moved by Jamie, seconded by Bonnie. All those in favor signal with hands. Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from February 26, 2025. They were circulated, so I'll look for if there's any amendments anyone needs or a motion to approve.
Moved.
Moved by Councillor Ivey.
Second.
Seconded by Jamie. All those in favor? Perfect. Moving right along to new business. Recommendation, CAC, terms of reference amendments. And John, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So I was informed by Deanna that amendments are coming to the meeting and committee procedural policy to council at the end of this month on the 22nd. So I thought this was an appropriate time to bring forward some recommended amendments to the terms of reference for the committee, largely dealing with grammatical errors and or aligning, the terms of reference with the meeting and committee procedural policy. As well as one of the additions is to add the regional municipality greenhouse gas emission local action plan as one of our reference documents, and throughout the terms of reference in essentially the plans that the committee and I work from. So the changes that I'm recommending for the committee to recommend to council are outlined in red in the attached terms of reference in attachment A. But the substantive changes are in that table that was just above, table 1 in the report, that include insertions and or potential deletions that I'm recommending. But if there are any questions on the amendments that I'm recommending to the terms of reference, I'd be happy to take them. And there is a motion included in the recommendation report.
Thank you, John. So I'll open it up to the group for any questions to John. Counselor Ivy.
Hey, thank you, Chair. John, thanks for the updates that you brought forward and the work that I know that goes into amending and changing components of documents like this, which can be fairly particular. So we're adding the greenhouse gas emission local action plan. Do we have a separate greenhouse gas local action plan, or is it included as the components of the overall plan that we have? Can you speak to that? Because I didn't see it as a noted separate document and just wanted to understand that.
I probably should have added it as an attachment. That's my mistake, Councillor Ivy, but we do have a separate document that is a plan. It is listed on our website under our climate action page, under the Climate Action Committee. But certainly if you have trouble finding it or anything, I can help you provide that. Yeah.
No, I can find it. In the list, you also gave us a list of other documents and it wasn't there. And I thought, well, maybe it's coming. And so this is preemptive in getting it noted as part of the terms of reference or not. I just wasn't sure. So I'll be able to find it. I just didn't get to that step in my checking. That would have been my next one to go to. So that's great. We have a separate document. The one thing I do note, I know that, and it's not totally related now, but I've spoken of it before, I think, is that, so we've gone through significant work on the stormwater plan for recently the town of Windsor, and there's other ones that are out there for the other documents, but the more recent document that we've worked through was supposed to have come through to the Climate Action Committee at some point in time for review before it coming to council. And I don't think that's happened yet. I don't know what's involved in doing that and if there's value at this stage of the game in doing that, but it just occurs to me that that is a document which talks to matters related to the impacts of climate change on the area and so on. It is something that probably should be included in the record and brought in for at least a review or discussion at this committee level. So my mind only went there because I couldn't come across and I thought, well, maybe this is when we're starting to add some new ones in. But so I'll just throw that out, that leave that to you as staff to take a look at that and see if that's something that should be included in the overall view of what we have here for climate action documents. And I know that those are still in progress in some phase 1 and we're on phase 2 or 3. I'm not sure. I don't mean that to be, it's just that there's a lot of work being done there. And so if the initial one makes sense or not is that. So I think that's good. Then the only other one that I saw in here that I'll speak to specifically at this point in time is the one of communications with the removal of section of the agenda for public comment. And I don't know that we've ever had anybody come here to speak on public comment, but I think that going in as an initiative, I think it was last September, October, which is a good thing. So when people do have something that they want to say or comment on, I think it's a good thing for them. And so I'd love to support all that we have here, but I can't support it with the removal of the public comment period on something that's as important as climate action within our community.
Thank you. John, would you like to?
So thank you, Chair, through you. Just to speak to that, Councillor Ivy, it's not removing the ability for a public comment period. The meeting and committee procedural policy already has that section defined in it and overrides the terms of reference, like precedes it in precedence. And that already has that section specified in there. So it's only removing it to make sure that we're in line with that policy. And if that policy ever gets changed, we don't have to keep changing the terms of reference. Really appreciate that. Thanks very much for the clarity.
Perfect. Anything else, Councillor Ivy, or that's good?
No, I think that's good for me. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions? If not, there is a recommendation on the screen. Councillor Bonnie Smith.
That the Climate Action Committee recommend that council approve the amendments to the committee's terms of reference as shown in attachment A to the report, amendments to the CAC Climate Action Committee terms of reference dated April the 9th, 2025.
Made by Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Ivy. Is there any questions on the motion? If not, we're voting that the Climate Action Committee recommend that council approve the amendments to the committee's term of reference as shown in attachment A to the report, amendments to the CAC terms of reference dated April 9th, 2025. All those in favor, signal by hands. Motion passed. Thank you very much. Okay, John, moving right along. Solar PV feasibility study.
Thank you, Chair. So as I outlined in my information report to the committee, there are no recommendations at this time. This is simply bringing the feasibility study that we had completed by CBCL Limited to the committee for review and for discussion. It's quite a lengthy study, but it's certainly very detailed and has a lot of helpful information in it. And they have some, have outlined some conclusions and some thoughts around solar feasibility on some of our different facilities. And in my information report, I've kind of outlined what I view are some of the major points for discussion, or that they may have mentioned that certainly impact the study and its parameters, and what may impact us going forward as a municipality in terms of solar installations. So I would certainly welcome discussion and questions on this study. And anything like that.
Thank you, John. It is lengthy, that's for sure. So does anyone have any questions or discussions on the solar feasibility study? Councillor Ivey.
So I'll fess up. I went through a chunk of it, but I couldn't get through all of it this quick, John. And so it might be appropriate that we bring it back again, or just to have it as if somebody has other comments or they want to, they can reach out to you for the next meeting or something. But there was I guess a couple of things in here that I did pick up on as part of your summary report that came through. And one is talking about the net value of doing the solar conversion, and that, can you just speak to that high level as to, because it's really quite a variance between the cost of what I would have perceived to be a smaller project overall relative to the, can you just talk a little bit about what's in that chart?
Sure. Through you, Chair. So the study certainly assesses the economic feasibility of these solar installations. Let's see if I can find the actual table at the conclusion. Or there we go. Okay. So essentially, when discussing the net present value of these projects, a negative net present value essentially means that the rate of return is lower than your discount rate that you applied to your financial assessment, essentially meaning that it's not going to provide financial value during its lifetime. Now, some of the parameters that were used to assess the financial feasibility include, because it was kind of based on a worst case scenario per se for the municipality, it included if the system to be installed was larger in financial worth than $150,000, then it involves the municipality taking out a loan to finance the more than $150,000. So that kind of reflects a worst case scenario in terms of building solar, because I certainly wouldn't recommend that the municipality take on debt to do that if we could certainly help it. And I would always certainly be looking for external funding sources from the province or the feds to offset some of these costs, which, because we don't have anything certain in terms of grants or contributions, you can't really include that in your financial analysis. But that net present value certainly speaks to perhaps in some of these cases, the non-financial feasibility of some of the solar projects. And some of them are quite small in comparison, right? Like at Brooklyn Fire Station 1, at 15,000 in a net present value negative, any sort of variable can change that any which way, right? Where it's not a huge amount. So I think that that's something that certainly, if the committee and council wished to go forward with anything in terms of a larger solar construction, that it would have to be analyzed a little more deeply in terms of funding sources and stuff like that.
Great, thank you. As I said, it was like 4 million on the landfill and to the -15, and then it looks like the Windsor wastewater treatment plant has net metering at 56,000, and that's not what I would have expected, up because they're kind of up in the woods too, out of the way, not necessarily right on the direct access to the grid. They must have some, but I didn't expect it to be quite so divergent. As it relates to this, I think also in your report, my second comment, if I could, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Oldby, is a comment that we came in under budget on the funding of this, and so there is the opportunity potentially to look at the community center as one option. And then the other one, which we touched on, I think at our last meeting, which was the sports complex, which again, I think about a $450,000 annual power bill out there. And I don't know that you had a recommendation here as much as information that we could look at including. Does the ability exist to also include the sports complex as part of that assessment? Or does that not make sense based on, I was about the roof and it's not clear to me whether its structure was good or not on that.
You want to?
Take a shot at that.
The community center one, I believe is the best first going forward because we've already got that process started in terms of having a consultant selected to do that structural analysis.
Sure.
And essentially, because that structural analysis is going to support whether or not we can put solar on that building, we can use some of this funding to pay for that. And so it kind of makes best use of a process that's already ongoing before the end of June.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I prioritize that one first. And I'm still trying to figure out with DNRR how much of that funding we can use towards the cost of that project, because I don't know for sure that we'll be able to use the full amount towards that, where it's a full-on structural analysis.
Yes.
Because I believe that they will probably want us to use it just towards the solar component, which in that case, if there is funding left over, I would certainly be willing to explore with CBCL if they can do it before the end of June, is just tack on the sports complex as an addition.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate the information and the reply on that. And yeah, if it makes sense and otherwise, left in your hands to deal with it, just because we talked about it at the last meeting and it just sort of seemed to make sense to ask the question. So thank you.
And I'm just going to add to that. I think that's a bigger conversation as well, maybe at the council level when we're discussing the community center, because it's going under a structural or review as well currently. So we may not want to get too far ahead of ourselves with looking for a solar project for the community center until we know on the other one. So, and I think we discussed as well, and I think it was CAO Phillips that we had this conversation, John, you may remember, is the solar for the sports complex because of the roof. And I'm not sure, I think Todd was at that conversation as well. Maybe looking at one on the ground. Was that not a conversation we had that we looked at because of, I think in this meeting, or because of the slant of the roof, that we looked at maybe an on-ground solar project as well? I think Glooscap has one in a huge one in the valley there. So yeah, all good points. I just think we should keep in mind before we push forward with anything to get the community center report back as well. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Ivey?
Just to follow up on that, if I could, and maybe I misunderstood and without flipping through the report to see it. So we aren't proceeding at present to evaluate whether the community center would be suitable for solar at the present time. Is that correct? Or did I misunderstand, John? I just, because of your comments, I just want to be clear here.
No, so the through you, Chair, the community center is going under structural assessment, right? Is going to be.
Right.
And because part of that structural assessment will help determine whether or not we can put solar on the roof, we're going to use some of the grant money to help pay for that assessment.
Got it.
Saving some of the money that council would spend on that project.
Yes.
It won't do an assessment like this in terms of energy
Right.
production and stuff for the community center, but it will tell us structurally whether
Can it handle it? Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Anything else on Director Richard?
Just through your chair to John. I know the 293 Wentworth Road sewage treatment plant. I know they looked at it and I apologize, I didn't read the report right through. So how much of the land area that municipality owns, did they look at off-site? Because there is that parcel where the old Town of Windsor dump site was. There's a field. Did they look at that parcel of land where it's kind of elevated and it's a bit away from the wastewater treatment plant, but it's a nice flat area and open? Did they actually look at that area?
I don't think we looked at that specific parcel that you're speaking of, but we did look at the land next to it, kind of down in that depression, next to the wastewater treatment plant. Part of it was also making sure that we could assess them in terms of net metering. And the further you get away from where your meter is, the more it costs you, of course, in terms of electrical infrastructure. So at that time, I believe, if I remember right, they only assessed the ground space that was right there near the plan. I'd have to look through this again to just look at the diagram, but yeah.
And from your evaluation through your chair, was it because just that ground space, the net difference, there just wasn't enough ground space to be a positive net effect through solar? Was that kind of the basis? Like there wasn't enough, surface area to, come out on the positive, because we are generating a fair bit of power consumption from that wastewater treatment plant.
John?
Through you, Chair. Essentially, I'd say that would certainly be part of it, is the generation side, but also there would be a need for particularly geotechnical investigation there, just because we don't want to interfere with the lagoons that are there, and the ditches that are existing there and the liners contained within them. But also part of it is that using ballasted foundations for solar PV systems are generally more expensive than rooftop mounted. So that's certainly part of it, but there are a lot of factors that went into their assessment, and I think probably because of the size of it, that using a loan certainly affected the financial analysis too. So if we could assess that without using loan financing, essentially, it might change that financial analysis quite a lot.
So is the report finished? It might be nice to follow up just to kind of, where that they did the assessment for that parcel. It's a different PID next to the sewage treatment plant, because the geotechnical, it's native land. It's quite flat. It might be nice to just follow up to see if that, would be feasible to take a look at that, because it's quite an open space and not really, available for development where it's at. And I think it would be visual from the highway, that land area. So.
Is that possible? I like where Director Richard is going, because if it's higher and it gets more solar light and can bank more, it might pay for the electrical to run it that way. So it might offset one
Yes.
each,
Yeah.
and then grow on that. So that might be something. I mean, this is a large report and there's a lot in it. So I mean, we can still dissect it as we go, and these are great questions. But I think if we could get something that, if it is higher and it can gather more solar, bank it, it might offset the electrical cost to hook it up. Is that how?
Yeah, and it's away from all our existing infrastructure, so it's not that, that issue with, around the lagoon liners and aerators. So yeah. Might be
Invisible
nice
from the
to
highway.
take another look. Yeah. It's kind of northeast of the plant. So where's there's Jersey barriers there. So if you continue on through there, it's that field at the back. So.
Great comment. Any other questions on that? Councillor Ivy?
Thank you. This will be my last one, but just, it's wonderful to be looking at this. I think it's a really positive step to be able to try and see what we can do in this regard. It's interesting, the comments just made is relative to the payback and if we can get away from debt financing. But if you look at the payback periods here, and they're just a simple calculation that they've done on it between 17 and 20 years. So it forces the question, what's the lifespan expectation of a solar field generally? And I'm sure it's probably there, John. I just can't pull it out of my head. Can you tell us what that is generally?
Generally, most solar systems, like the panels themselves, are guaranteed for at least 25 years.
Okay.
The other components, microinverters and such, usually are around lifespan around 10 years. So those also factor into these replacement costs within the financial analysis, is replacing those microinverters and such in the
Right.
on the 10-year cycle too. Yeah.
And that's built in as part of the costing to show the, right. So that's the unfortunate part of this, such a long payback period. But thank you very much.
Anything further? I like the solar idea. I mean, if you drive around, you go up through Truro to the 236 and on I think it's their wastewater plant, or, I mean, it's huge. The solar panels they have, you go to Summerside, you see it. And I mean, I look around us, we don't have any. It would be nice if we as West Hants can do it. And I know I preach this at council all the time, because when you do go to other areas, you see a lot of solar. And I feel like we're lacking that, but that's just a personal observation. Nothing further? Okay, we'll keep going. Business arising from the minutes, update climate change and health vulnerability assessment. John, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. So this is something I discussed with the committee at our last meeting at the end of February. And this is an initiative taken on by Nova Scotia Health that the municipality provided a letter of support for when they applied to the federal government for funding. And essentially what this initiative, just for a quick recap, will allow us to do is to do a climate and health vulnerability assessment throughout the central zone, which includes Halifax Regional Municipality and West Hants Regional Municipality. So on Monday, the 24th of March, I went to a launch event with Public Health in Beaverbank, and we spent the day going over what they expect to get out of this assessment, what kind of factors they're going to include in the indicator groups that they're going to use. And we essentially spent the day going through them and giving them feedback on what we thought maybe we should include and what we should add, because they're going to be assessing geographic factors, infrastructure factors, socioeconomic and health factors in terms of vulnerability to your population and your community to climate change. And then using different climate indicators such as daily temperature, humidity, precipitation, and whether that precipitation is in the form of snow, rain, or hail, those sorts of things. Going to be assessing maximum wind speeds and such like that to assess the vulnerability throughout the community. So this will be a 3-year project. They will be doing it until 2028 is the plan. So, and that's when their funding is too. So it was very helpful on the 24th to kind of get a more in-depth understanding of what they actually plan to do and where they're going to do it. And in the coming days and months, they're going to keep me specifically more involved in what indicator groups they use and where we can get some extra background information on this assessment specifically.
Very good. Any questions for John? I guess it's just an initial introduction until they have more meetings and we find out more, but that's great. You'll be able to keep us in the loop. Anything? No. Okay, we'll keep on going. Update for NSPI level 3 EV chargers.
Thank you, Chair. So any of you who have driven by the sports complex recently have probably seen the changes around our existing level 2 EV charger, and the addition of 2 level 3 electric vehicle chargers installed by Nova Scotia Power. So they now have their transformers installed and everything after some making sure things would fit around the existing infrastructure that we have there, specifically underground. And we had some great use of the vac truck with Public Works. So they were a big help in terms of that. It was really, really nice to get some of that cooperation going to get that project done. And I don't have an exact date from Nova Scotia Power yet, but they should be opening them up for public use very soon. And I'm just working on with them to get an exact date of when they'll open them. And then we'll have 2 level 3 EV chargers in our community that should charge an electric car from 0 to 100 in approximately 20 to 30 minutes.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Any questions on that for John? Councillor Ivey?
Thank you, Chair, through you to John. So the chargers themselves, they were provided by us or by Nova Scotia Power? Because, yeah, just I'll.
John?
Through you, Chair. The chargers themselves were provided by Nova Scotia Power. They get a grant from NRCan to install them, and they will run them and everything. We're providing the space for them to be located here.
Absolutely. So do we seek to have other spaces we can have them load those, or in other words, can we get them to do more of that so that we're not having to invest in the capital dollars into?
Probably. They have talked about considering expansion if they can. So that's certainly something, if they come looking for more support, we can discuss and the committee can discuss as a group whether there's a specific location maybe we can suggest. They have very specific parameters around where they're supposed to go with this grant that they got. They had to be near 100 series highway, and like they had a very specific distance of where they could be. So we didn't have a whole lot of spaces that they could be, but if they consider expansion in the future, it's something I'd certainly recommend we, help them with and discuss locations. Yeah.
Thanks very much, John. Just one follow-up through you, Chair, to John. So our support of this, was it purely in kind? Well, great deal. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? I do have one if I don't. We had two there. Where did they go?
We had one level 2
Oh,
EV
right,
charger
one,
there.
Yeah.
So that one was moved up 3 parking spaces
Oh, I didn't
to
notice.
make room for the 2 new ones.
Okay.
So now we have 6 EV charging ports there.
Perfect.
2 on each level 3 and
Yeah.
2 on our existing level 2. And they're all in a row, nice and neat, so that EV chargers kind of have a specific spot.
Because I was watching the 2 new ones and everything that was going on. I missed ours, but that's great.
Yeah,
Because
and-
they are in use, like there's on a daily, there's someone there using them. So that's great.
Yeah, and we do have another level 2 at the community center. as
Community
well.
center, yeah, so. And you get a report on the usage of those? So is it good?
Yeah, so I kind of monitor it on approximately monthly basis. I think I brought an update to the committee in 2023 after a full year of them being installed, and I would say it's very good. Yeah, they're not being used every hour of the day, which isn't really to be expected,
No.
but I would say they're being used quite well, and they're certainly reducing a lot of emissions as we go along. And at one of our meetings in the fall, I'll certainly seek to bring forward an information report. Now that we'll be at 2 years of them operating.
Yeah,
for
and
the
I
committee.
think that would be great to have. And then if we see that we need more, maybe we can go after Nova Scotia Power to see if they have any more and pick other outlining areas. I know Ellershouse Hall has one that the wind they put in. So yeah, it might be interesting. Perfect. Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing. We're at our roundtable discussion. So I won't put everyone on the spot, but I'll start this time to my right. If anyone has something they would like to add or ask for at a future meeting, you can shake your head. I'm not going to make you speak if you don't have anything. I won't do that to you. Everyone's good? 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 Bonnie? Okay, quiet.
Thank you. Oh, you were.
Yeah, I'm over here. I just zoomed right by. I was just gonna say Counselor Ivy because I thought you might, so.
My only comment was made earlier, I think, which is on the flood study component, and just, as appropriate, John, if it makes sense to have it here, would be good. Thanks.
I think if there's a component that would fit in, that's fine, but if it's something that stays at our council level too, but if there's something that you can, that would be great. I have nothing, so do you have anything?
I do, just very quick.
Perfect.
It's not really a formal update, but I essentially, by the end of this month, I will be bringing a recommendation to council to apply to the FRIP program, the Flood Risk Infrastructure Investment Program through the province. And I'll be applying to that to offset part of the cost of our home flood protection program for the municipality. I'll be seeking to offset, I believe it's up to 50% we can go with that program. So we'll see where we can go with that. And I'll have a recommendation for a funding resolution from council at the end of the month. And then it's due on the 28th. So I'll have that application in.
Okay, so at our council meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. We have no public, so there's no public comments. So our next meeting date is September 10th, 2025. So I am looking for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Great. Okay, all in favor? We're all good. Well, enjoy your day, everyone, and thank you for your time.
What was that?